Hello, this is worksheet 1.3 for Algebra 2. We're solving equations and checking our solutions, so I'm super excited. Here we go. Remember your list for your notes on worksheet 1.3. I'll be referring to that as we simplify. This is just a two-step equation, so we're going to undo addition first by adding 2. So we get 5x equals 15, and then undo multiplication by dividing. So we get x equals 3. So I think that's right. I'm going to circle it, but then I can check it. I'll take 5 times 3 minus 2, and I get 13 in my head when I do that, so that is definitely the correct answer. 13 equals 13. It's the solution. All right, this one's a little tricky. I would recommend that you keep switch flip or add the opposite. So I'm going to rewrite that. 9 plus negative 3x equals negative 3. So what's being done to x? It's being multiplied by negative 3, and it's being added to by 9. We have to undo whatever is getting added to it first. So we're adding 9 to x, so we undo that by subtracting 9. So we get, on the right side, we get negative 12. Careful, what do you write down on the left side here? Well, this got undone, so we are left with a negative 3x. If you don't bring down the negative with the 3, the answer won't work out. So now we divide by negative 3 to undo multiplying by negative 3. So we get x equals 4. Let me check that. We had 9 minus 3x. Oops, 9 minus 3 times 4 equals a negative 3. On the left side, we get 9 minus 12 equals negative 3, and 9 minus 12 is negative 3. So I'm feeling good with that. Now in number 3, take a look at it. There's something a little more difficult than the other two that we've done, and the difficulty is the fact that there's variables on each side. And I like to address that right away, as long as I don't have to distribute or combine like terms. So from here, I notice that there's an x on each side. I like to get rid of the side with the smaller coefficient. That's just a 1. This is a 2. So this is the smaller coefficient. So I'm going to subtract 1x. To undo the positive x. So that is undone, and now I have an equation. 2x minus 1x is 1x. I have an equation with x only on one side. So I know that I want to isolate or get this x by itself. So I subtract 9 and subtract 9. So we get x equals negative 5. When I plug that back into the original equation for my check, negative 5 plus 4 equals, question mark, equals 2 times negative 5 plus 9. Oop. So here I get negative 1 on the left, and I hope I get negative 1 on the left. This gives me negative 10. Negative 10 plus 9 is negative 1. Oh yeah. Nice. It's definitely right. Next side we're going to add 5, so we get 3x equals 14. Just kidding. So divide by 3. You get x equals 14 thirds. Let's check that. Let's take 14 thirds times 3 and subtract 5 and see if we get 9. Here's the deal. When we take 3 times 14, which is like 42, and then divide that by 3, we're left back with 14. The cool thing here is that these 3's really undo each other. So is 14 minus 5 equal to 9? You bet it is. Next one, again, there are x's on both sides. That's a big red flag for me. So I undo the side with fewer x's, or the smaller coefficient. So I subtract x. You could subtract 3x from each side. That's okay. There's a bunch of ways to do these. As long as you get the right answer and you know you got the right answer, do whatever you want, but show your work. So then we're going to add 1 and add 1, and I get 2x equals 5. So x equals 5 halves, or 2.5. You know, if you want to use that, you could, but it'd be good to get used to using fractions. So you know what? I'm going to use 2.5. So we have 3 times 2.5 minus 1 equals 2.5 plus 4. So 3 times 2.5 is 7.5, minus 1 2.5 plus 4. You might want to think money here is like $6.50. So $7.50 minus $1 is $6.50. It's definitely correct. Now here, I notice there's x's on both sides, but before I can touch that, I need to distribute the values in. And so on the right side, you're probably like, yeah, definitely got to multiply this by 2 everywhere in the parentheses, so we get 6x minus 2. But on the left side, you have to distribute that -1 in. You can slip a 1 right here if you need to. Essentially, we're taking the opposite of everything inside of there. So we get -x and -1. Okay, now that we've distributed and there's nothing to combine on either side, now we can get x to one side. So to undo a -1x, I will add a positive 1x. And what I do to one side, gotta do to the other. So we get -1 equals 7x minus 2. So now we add 2. So I'm getting x equals 1/7. So I'll check that now. Just kind of because it's going to take some work.
Oh, is there a laptop left in here?
You can take a look for it. I don't see one, but I didn't look very closely. So here we get, that'd be like 1 1/7 or 8/7. And then we have to do the opposite of that. So that's what I get on the left side. On the right side, 3 times 1/7 is 3/7. We have to take 1 away from that. I'm going to do that work off to the side a little bit. So I'm just doing what's in the parentheses here. 3/7 minus 1. Before you can subtract fractions, because this first thing is a fraction, there's no way I want around it. We're not going to use a decimal here because that's way too messy. I'm going to change this first one right here to 1/1. And then before we can actually subtract them or combine them, we have to have a common denominator, and that would be 7. So 3/7 minus, I'm going to multiply the bottom and the top by 7. What you do to the top, you got to do the bottom. 1 is the same as 7 divided by 7. Right? If you have $7 and split it among 7 people, you each get 1. It's a little more complicated way to write it here, but that allows us to subtract across the top. So we get -4/7. You just bring that common denominator along. So on the right side, so this simplifies to -4/7. But then, don't forget about that 2 out in front, that multiplier of 2. And when you multiply fractions, you don't need a common denominator. So I slipped a 1 underneath the 2. So I see that we're multiplying 2 fractions together. Then you just multiply straight across. So we get -8 on the top, and on the bottom, 1 times 7 is 7. Hey! -8/7, -8/7. It's correct. Whoa. Alrighty, let's keep rolling. So here, we distribute the 1/2 through, so you're taking half of 4, that's 2. Taking half of 10, that's 5. I have to distribute first, which I've done. So now I like to get rid of the side with the smaller coefficient because I've noticed that there's x's on each side, so I get 5x plus 5 equals 5. That's going to be funny. So we undo adding 5 by subtracting 5. We get 5x equals, what's on the right side? 0. Can you take 0 divided by 5? You bet. I'll take my favorite 5 students, which includes you, and I'll split amongst the 5 of you $0. Think of the top always as money and the bottom as people. And when you divide, it tells you how much each person will get. You each get $0. 0 is the solution. I'm going to check that up here. Sometimes it's kind of nice to check on the paper right with it. I'm going to do it on top, see if I can squeeze that in. So on top, I get 4 times 0, which is 0, plus 10, which is 10, and then I take half of it, so I get 5. Over here, I take 5 minus 3 times 0. 3 times 0 is 0. 5 minus 0 is 5. It checks out. Bada bing, bada boom. No distribution here, no combining here, but I realize that I have x's on both sides, so I'm going to get rid of the -1/3 x by adding 1/3 x. 1/3 x plus 1/3 x is 2/3 of an x. And now I subtract 1, so I get 2/3 x equals -9. You undo multiplying by a fraction by multiplying. Whoa, boy, hope we don't see anything too bad there. You can pause and review that. I will too, but there shouldn't be anything bad in my email. Oh, time's up. Just kidding. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to take that -1, or that -9 and divide it by 1. Doesn't change the value, but now I'm multiplying fractions. Again, the 2/3 and the 3/2 canceled out. You get 6/6, which is just 1x, and we want to know what 1x or x equals. You get -27/2. I'm worried about time, so I am going to set some of these up here, distribute the 2/3 x. You know what, I'm just going to do this and then I'll do a second version. So let's check this one. 1/3 times -27/2 plus 1 equals -1/3 times -27 halves minus 8. When we multiply fractions, we can multiply straight across. So I have -27 sixths plus 1. And over here I have 27 sixths minus 8. Kind of nervous about this, but so now we can call this 1 27 over, oh, just kidding. We want a common denominator, so we want it out of 6. So 1 is the same as 6 out of 6. We have -27 sixths plus 6 out of 6. That equals -21 sixths. Here we have 27 sixths minus, we want this 8 divided by 6. So that's the same as 48 sixths. And when you take 27 on the top minus 48, you get -21. Bring the common denominator along. Check. It works. Did I make it under 15 minutes? Whoa. Hey, just a second. No, I'm here. I'm not sleeping.